Morning agenda: Charter, Comcast, and Sprint. Breaking: the European Commission has hit Google with a record fine of $2.7 billion for unfairly favoring some of its search services over those of rivals. Sprint has entered exclusive talks with Charter Communications and Comcast about wireless services, putting Sprint's discussions about a merger with T-Mobile on ice, The Wall Street Journal and Reuters reported, citing people familiar with the matter. The cable companies are considering taking a stake in Sprint to invest in its network. In exchange, they would get favorable terms to offer wireless services. There is also a possibility that the cable companies will buy Sprint, although the Wall Street Journal said that was much less likely. The talks don't mean that Sprint's discussions with T-Mobile are off. That long-contemplated deal could still happen. Charter and Comcast reached an agreement in May to offer telephone and data services together. At the time, they had hoped that by selling broader packages, they could ward off the problem of customers deserting traditional cable services in favor of streaming. A deal with Sprint could help them retain customers by adding mobile phone services to their bundles. Activists look elsewhere. We've seen them bend the knees of even the biggest corporate titans in the United States. Now, activist investors may be looking to throw their weight around overseas. With his move to put the Swiss consumer company Nestle under pressure, Daniel S. Loeb became the latest money manager to try and shake up a foreign company's strategy. He had already been urging change at Japanese companies like Sony. Other notable examples: Elliott Management has taken on the Dutch paint maker Akzo Nobel, the British-Australian mining firm BHP Billiton, the Bank of East Asia and the South Korean conglomerate Samsung. Nelson Peltz of Trian Partners pushed for changes at Danone, the French multinational that owns Evian and various yogurt brands. What's the attraction? There is plenty of competition in the United States, and European countries sometimes lack the sort of defenses that American companies can use against activists. For example, Swiss corporate law could help Mr. Loeb get someone on the board at Nestle in Switzerland. Shareholders elect each member of the board individually, so if Mr. Loeb chose to nominate a new member and they received a majority of the vote, that candidate would be added without contest. Still, American activists have mixed records abroad. Akzo Nobel rebuffed a takeover attempt by PPG Industries in spite of pressure from Elliott. Mr. Loeb's battle against Sony ran out of steam. And then there is the tricky issue of other shareholders being suspicious of what they might see as American interlopers. Many companies in Europe and Asia have one large shareholder that is either a family or the government. Still, Nestle investors seem to like Mr. Loeb's effort. His letter sent shares up on Monday. And ULF Mark Schneider, Nestle's chief executive, has already hinted that he has been feeling the heat from investors. On a call with analysts in April, Mr. Schneider said that he had been encouraged by support in investor meetings, but noted, "We do understand from these meetings that you want to see meaningful steps toward improved combinations of growth rates and margins." Carol Ryan at Breaking Views argues, however, that Nestle needs a different shake-up to the 1/3 point is requesting. And any changes that Mr. Schneider makes would have to pass muster with Paul Bulcke, his predecessor and Nestle's chairman. A new, external chairman would make it easier to make the changes that Mr. Loeb's hedge fund has called for. Measuring good corporate citizenship. Big investors like to tout their credentials when it comes to environmental, social and governance issues, telling companies that they need to show their responsible stewardship in those categories to gain their favor. But many on Wall Street remain skeptical about the value of such policies. So a new study that aims to quantify and correlate stock performance with so-called ESG factors is generating chatter among the investor class. The good news: investors who look at these metrics are less likely to buy shares in companies with volatile stocks or that are headed toward bankruptcy. But ESG considerations are not enough to help a stock outperform its peers. In fact, E.S.G was generally a weak signal of future returns, according to the study. Companies that rated the best on ESG issues performed better, on average, but the study said that this performance was not consistent, and was very similar to the performance of large versus small companies. The study caused a stir because the results were so mixed, Andrew Ross Sorkin writes. It seems it will take more evidence and perhaps more time to prove itself as an investment thesis.